everyone. Teri Wellbrock here, host of the Healing Place podcast. So I have a big favor to ask before we dive into today's inspirational, very enlightening conversation. So the Healing Place podcast is contender in the 18th annual People's Choice Podcast Awards. Yay! And if you go to podcastawards.com, so podcastawards.com, you can find the Healing Place podcast under the health category. That was the best choice for mental health. And the People's Choice category. So those are the two areas where you can nominate. If you love this show, please take just a few minutes to go vote for the Healing Place podcast in the 18th annual People's Choice Podcast Awards. All right, now for today's beautiful, wonderful episode. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and so very excited to have with me today Joshua Cameron. And Joshua is an elite trained master healer whose purpose is helping those who have lived with chronic, debilitating pain find relief and begin living their lives with joy, gratitude, and a renewed energy, which I'm like, yay. All right. Welcome, Joshua.
Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate you providing the space.
Oh, absolutely. I know myself, I told you before I hit record, I've been on my own trauma journey, but I've also, over the last few years, and thankfully doing so much better, went through what I say is just kind of God's way, source, whatever you want to call it, of taking me that one step further on my evolution, and went through this horrible physical pain and journey. And so that was something I had never dealt with before. And fascinating to me how my trauma was interconnected with all of it. So can you talk to us and touch upon that for us?
As far as just how trauma will entangle itself into like each part of who we are.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think that, when we look at trauma, I find well, first off, there is no truth with a capital T, right? There is no one way to look at this. And so what I really encourage people to do is to create a map, right? A map is not the territory, but a map allows me to get to the territory I'm looking to get to. And so create a map that works for you. And what I really like is the idea that shamans talk about, this idea of a soul retrieval. And think of trauma as a way of, your values of the world, your model of the world has been violated to such a degree that you just can't compute, and it corrupts the code within. And when it corrupts that code within, what happens is it almost takes a fracture of a splinter of our soul, and it traps it in a prison in time, which is why, no matter how old we are, right? If we've got a hurt little child, well, it doesn't matter if you're 55, you still act like a hurt little child. And so what happens is, since we're not whole, well, and we haven't dealt with, right, that block, well, all energy needs to flow. And as energy is trying to flow within us, and we know that everything's energy, we know everything's made of atoms, we know atoms are 99.9 to the 6, empty space. We know from, physicists, say Max Planck, who was a contemporary of Einstein, that, everything is consciousness is primary. So we know that everything is energy, everything is consciousness. So as that energy is trying to flow, well, what happens is it's flowing and it's hitting that block, right? That cell that's holding, a part of us, back in time. And it's there to remind us, hey, there's a disturbance in the force. Hey, there's something not healthy. Hey, there's something that you need to deal with. The problem is, we don't raise people. We don't raise kids on how to deal with trauma. We don't raise kids on how to look at, oh, now that I'm safe, now that the tiger is no longer chasing me, well, let me go ahead and decompress what just happened, and so I can move on forward and be whole again. And so we're always fractured. So what happens is, when that energy is revealing to us, hey, there's something unhealthy here, well, we just double down on it. And if we double down on it, well, what did Carl Jung say? Well, that which you resist persists.
Yeah. Wow. And so very powerful. And I mean, I know I love when I learned about the stored negative energy, which you and I talked about very briefly,
Yeah.
that even having a moment of when startle effect, like just shaking it out and allowing my body to release that. I think I saw something, some sort of video one time, and it was talking about these researchers had gone out in the field in Africa, and a lion and a jaguar chased this gazelle and caught it and drug it over to eat it, but left, right? But the animal was still alive, and it realized, oh, okay, my predator's gone, hopped up and ran and found its herd. But when it got to its herd and it was safe, its whole body was twitching, its ears were twitching, everything was,
Mm.
and they were talking about how they then recognized that it was processing its trauma, like it was releasing it. And so is that something that you help people do along their healing journey? You talk about the physical pain. Is that something like helping people release that trauma?
I love the image of the gazelle. I never thought about that, but yeah, really, what happens is, you might hear people who throw these lines around like, "Oh, it just feels like I'm cursed. I have such this curse of bad luck. Everything I try to do, it's like I have this cloud, above me that's just keeping the sun from being able to reach me." Well, that curse is just it's built up energy, and that energy. Imagine if all energy needs to flow, and our energy quits flowing. Well, what happens when water quits flowing? Well, it stagnates. And if water stagnates, well, then what's attracted to stagnating water? Well, parasites, mosquitoes. And so what happens is, what we feel, we might even feel like things are watching us. Well, these mosquitoes and these parasites of the energy world are feeding on our soul. And the soul is the superset, right? The superset, which is what, the governing agent, what did Max Planck say? Everything is consciousness. Consciousness comes from the superset, which is the soul. And if the soul is being drained, well, what happens is our body and our minds, well, they break down as a natural consequence. So what I do is I help get rid of those parasites. First I help open the flow again. But when you open the flow, what that does is, yeah, it does get rid of the stagnant energy in much the same way that, the Tao Te Ching has this idea that if you give evil nothing to oppose, it'll go away on its own. Not because it's not there, but because you can step out of its way. And most people, when they're fighting mosquitoes, right, they're flopping their hands around and they're just trying to, like a maniac, trying to get rid of it. Well, the problem with that is that mosquitoes are attracted to us by two main things. One is odor, and the second is carbon dioxide. Well, if I'm flopping my hands around, it gets my heart rate going, which then does what? Gets my breathing going faster. So again, I'm making it worse. Again, what did Carl Jung say? That which you resist persists. And so the point is to get the flow back from that divine source, from our soul, to go ahead and get rid of that stagnant water. So we're stepping out of the way of evil, allowing to get rid of the eggs of all of what's attracting that. And then it's a matter of getting rid of the parasites, mosquitoes that are on the host.
Wow. Yeah. I love that visual, and it's so true. So what are your I guess approaches to helping people? Is it meditation, mindfulness? Is it a combination of things?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. It's mainly meditation, right? Because I do some coaching because I find that the mind is a defense mechanism, right? You walk into an unknown space, and immediately your mind is like, hey, what is this place? What's going on here? And so I like to give people just enough information for their left brain to be like, that makes sense. Right. And this is why models and maps of the world are very useful, like that map I just created, with flow and with parasites. And so that way the left brain can say, that makes enough sense for me to be able to relax. And when we get to a meditative state, that's when we can actually reach in and actually start tapping into the soul. And the reason why is because, anyone who's ever, been in data like I have, I used to do a lot of data analytics for the entire, pediatric outpatient network at the University of Utah. And there's this idea that you have to quiet the noise to increase the signal. Well, where's the noise? But the noise is in our brain, and it starts from really innocuous things like, hey, Teri, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're like, oh my gosh, oh, I want to be this. Oh, I'm so excited. And then the people around you often will be like, well, that's dumb. Why would you want to do that? Wouldn't you want to be what I think would actually make you successful? And what happens is that we put people on pedestals, and we can't help it. whether it be a big brother, whether it be our mom and dad, whoever it is. And when they tell us things like that, we then start identifying with, oh, I'm dumb. Oh, my inner voice is dumb. Oh, this idea, this source of inspiration came within. But as I go through the Rolodex, as I go through the database within myself, what do I find? Evidence that I'm dumb. Therefore, I quit listening to myself. Therefore, I only have noise and zero signal. So we've got to clear the noise in order to open up the signal.
Yeah. Now, in order to clear out that noise, is it a matter of then journaling and writing about it, or expressing? How do they, is it a session that they have with you as coach and then talk it out? And how do people clear it out?
That's such a great question. And it reminds me of, the great master who taught me how to heal, Ed Stracher. He had an incredible interview with a man by the name of Dennis Stevenson. And Dennis actually teaches, multimillionaires about financial flow, how to become even more wealthy. And he doesn't say anything about the stock market. He doesn't say anything about portfolios. He only talks about flow. And he had this really interesting line that it doesn't matter what you do, but that you do. So I'm going to take people through the meditations, and that's the big part. But the thing is, you don't want to rely on me for the rest of your life, right? I'm here to help you, right? You may not know how to ride a bike. So I'm here to get you on the training wheels, get you riding your bike, and then take the training wheels off. And then if journaling is what helps, do it. If you journal and it ends up becoming a burden and you don't really feel it, well, then let it go. And again, it doesn't matter what it is that you do to get you to a healthier place, to get you to process that stuff, to get you to process that flow and get that flow back in your life. What matters is that you do.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, Joshua, because again, I have probably tried, I don't know, I truly like 75 different things along my healing journey, because it comes across my radar. I'm like, ooh. And so I talk about building a giant toolbox, right? Because some days that thing's going to work. Other days it's not going to work. And so then you can go back to your toolbox and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll do some art therapy today because journaling, I'm just not feeling the flow. Right.
Yeah.
And so I love that you're saying that I love that saying that it's not, it's what
Not
was
what you do, but that you do.
it's that you do. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, and you might even notice, so there's four basic human needs, and there's the need for certainty and the need for variety, which is uncertainty. There's also the need for connection and the need for significance. Now, specifically with the need for certainty and uncertainty, well, what happens is we might find that a tool really works for us. Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then we really lean into it and it gives us the certainty that I'm doing something. But then we might find that if we do it day after day after day, it kind of becomes a task. And it's almost like a check to mark on a list, and that loses all of its power, all of its magic. And so having the uncertainty, a little bit of variety, having a menu of things to do, right? And so my morning routine, for instance, I don't go through the exact type of meditation. I meditate. First thing I do when I wake up is I come and I drink a full bottle of my water, and I usually meditate the night before into it, a manifestation, abundance manifestation, because water retains memory. So I'm putting my own love into it. I'm getting the love from the meditation into it. I also have pyramids that I put on top of my water bottles. And so that way it's because pyramids will magnify and purify energy. And so that way, first thing in the morning, I'm drinking that down. And then I go upstairs and I might do a silent meditation. I might do a meditation with binaural beats. I might do a meditation with music. And so the point is to mix it up and really allow yourself to find the fullest expression of that tool that fits within you. So that way the best of you can come out.
I love it. And I did an interview this morning. We were talking about morning routines. And I said every morning, I don't reach for my phone. I go in, I get in the bathtub, and I do healing work on my body, since I'm still trying to do some healing work to get through the last of this physical ailment. Mm-hmm. And, but same sort of thing. Sometimes I'll do some brain rewiring meditation. Sometimes I'll do just some, I found a station on Pandora. It was theta wave.
Mm-hmm.
meditation sounds. And so I'll do that. But this morning I said, my son had made me a playlist on Spotify, a mom playlist. And he said, these are songs that remind me of you from my childhood. And so I turned it on and I said, oh my gosh, I so flashed back to the 90s because in early 2000s, because these songs, and I said, my kid paid attention because I love these songs. So, and even though it wasn't meditation so much, I really did just kind of close my eyes and allowed myself to just go into this, but it was slowing my breathing, and I was just in such a happy, beautiful place just listening to these memories. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, as far as music goes, I love to listen to Marina Raye, Raye. She does a lot of wood flute, Native American music. There's a lot of birds or bugs in the background and streaming water, and there's just it's so powerful. But then if there's people who are really looking for more of the binaural aspect, whether it be theta, whether it be alpha, whether it be delta, brainwaves. Stephen Halpern, Halpern, phenomenal. That guy is amazing. He's got some of the most amazing music, and it can really just bring you right in. It's fantastic.
I've seen his name pop up on this station that I'm on Pandora, because it brings in just a whole eclectic mix. And I had a podcast guest on, Trish. And gosh, am I drawing a blank on her last name? Sorry, Trish, I love you, but I listen to you all the time. Devney, and it's Dhevney. And her station, same sort of thing. It's beautiful. It's like healing bowls and sounds. But then as I've listened to it so often, the selection has expanded, and it is a lot of Native American and the wood flutes and a lot of nature sounds, and just so peaceful and relaxing to my system. So yeah. Beautiful. I'm going to make a left turn, and I want to talk about your hat just for a second. Sure. Because I said, when I looked at your information for the interview and was reading up and seeing what questions I wanted to ask and so forth, and I said to myself, oh my gosh, I love his hat. And so then when you popped on to the video, for those of you listening on audio, you'll have to pop on over to the YouTube channel, because we'll have it on video, and you check it out. But I love it. So talk to us about it for just a second.
Sure. Well, before I quite get into the hat, to kind of set the stage, I want to invite the idea from the Kabbalion, as above, so below, as below, so above, as well as, opposites are the exact same, just a difference of degree. And so, as a young child growing up, right, as below, so above, growing up, well, I had a hard time, right? I was raised in a household that didn't really have a lot of love. Had a lot of alcoholism, had a lot of violence, verbal and physical. And so, how did I make myself feel safe? Well, I had long hair, I had knee-high Doc Martens. I've part of the goth club, and big Slayer shirts, big Marilyn Manson shirts, and a big old leather jacket. So, my clothes are my armor. My clothes are what made the statement of who I am. Well, I didn't realize that who I am, I was trapping myself more in the me, right? Because there's the me, which is my body, and there's I am, which is, again, the superset, my soul. And so the hat, I had the dark night of my soul, right? My life was kind of falling apart, and a big part of that was the pandemic really just thrust that over. I was working in pediatrics, and I felt so good. I came from pediatric medical research, and so I've been involved in healthcare for over 10 years, and so now I'm doing data analytics, helping all the providers, and feeling amazing. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is all political. Like, there's nothing here about taking care of people. It's all politics. Like, wow, have I been so blind? Have I been in my bubble this whole time while looking at other people like, hey, glad I'm not in their bubble? It's like, oh my gosh. So it was such an epiphany moment. But I tuned into this book here. It's a book that I read when I was in the Army. So, dealing with war time as well. And again, trying to, bring myself back to, who I want to be, who I am. And it's the Cleric Quintet series by R.A. Salvatore. And there's this character named Catterley. And Catterley, I identified so much with. It's this guy who he grew up in a monastery, and they have all these rules for the sake of rules. But anyone who is spiritual knows that the spirit rebels against rules for the sake of rules. And so he would find himself in a place where instead of going from point A to point B to point C, you go from point A to point C and get there before anybody else, but not because he was trying to show others a better way, just so he could thumb his nose at authority and be like, look how smart I am. And it's like, bro, you're like, is this me? Is this my life? Well, and when ultimate danger knocked on the door, right? And you could call that the pandemic. When things started falling apart, he stepped up. The boy had to become a man. And when he stepped into his godhood nature, in this case is the god Denir, Den, I think EIR, but Forgotten Realms, but this holy god. Well, once he started walking that path, well, he got a hat much like this. And so inside this hat, I had gilded Joshua I am. Because as I was growing up, again, I was told, you should be Josh, right? Because Joshua is so childlike. Joshua sounds like a child. And I realized, oh, well, as I'm stepping into who I want to be, as well as stepping into my true power, is there, I mean, especially in the Western world, is there really a more powerful name than Yeshua, than Joshua? I mean, is there? Like, holy cow, I've robbed myself of so much power stepping into my power by listening to the noise and not by listening to the signal, my heart.
Beautiful. Well,
and so my hat really is a way for me to death who I want to be, who I am, and a way to not really shield myself, but more announce myself. Instead of cowering with a big leather jacket, announce myself like, hey, here I am. I'm here to help.
Yes, I love it. Well, it certainly caught my attention, and I'm so glad that when you popped on, I was like, I love your hat. Because I mean, truly, it's just something that you do announce yourself with it, because it was just one of those things that I noticed immediately and just was drawn to. So I love it. All right.
I appreciate that.
Well, cool. So let me see. Talk about the miracle healing system. That was something that came up, and I put a little star by it. So what is that?
Well, the miracle healing system is exactly that. I mean, what do I call a system where, I take somebody through a meditation and I heal their soul. I get rid of those parasites. I get rid of those. And so I wasn't really sure what to call it. And the more that I started tapping into ancient wisdom and really drawing upon, sources like the Tao Te Ching, well, I've started to now wrap not just the healing, but also the coaching part into the Ching system, CHING, which really is, clarity and concentration. Most people know exactly what they don't want, but have no idea what they do want. And as people, we can't help but move in the direction of our focus while also magnifying our focus. And if we only know what we don't want, well, guess what we're going to get more of, right? And then the H is, healthy in, body, mind, and spirit. Again, as below, so above, as above, so below. If we treat our bodies like slaves, like this, peasant, it just throws some food down the hatch, right? Doesn't need to be healthy, right? Just give some slop. Well, then that's not going to set up our mind for what it needs in order to be healthy. And if our mind's not healthy, well, that's going to block our connection to source, to our soul. And, the I is, again, the great I am. Let's separate out the me from the I am. The N is the non-negotiables, right? Where are we dogmatic? Where are we skeptical and not open-minded? Because there's not a single time that being skeptical and not open-minded will ever benefit you in your life, period. Right? Don't believe what I say. Don't believe what any guru or any psychologist, any doctor says. Try it out yourself and see where it works for you. Right? Try out and see how, and then so be skeptical, but be open-minded. Be an open-minded skeptic. So examine the non-negotiables, and the G is goodness. Right? What really set me on this path was carving out my greatest ideal of goodness of which I can conceive. And for me, who was that? Well, it was Gandalf. But not just Gandalf that's, fighting some giant demon in a mine he didn't want to go to in the first place, right? Moria, or facing off against the Witch King, which again, he wanted nothing to do with the Witch King. Gandalf helped save the world because he saw what nobody else could. That what keeps great evil at bay is one act of kindness to another, just a small act. And who did he hang around with that didn't almost, universally, that hobbits. Hobbits that everyone else thought had no value were the ones who saved the world because their hearts were so full of love. And that is what Gandalf saw that nobody else could see.
That's so awesome. Now you make me want to go watch the movie. Yeah, I love it. Well, in the Tao Te Ching, is that have you ever read Dr. Wayne Dyer, Change Your
So yes,
Thoughts?
he did. I think he went through and talked about how he studied it, like maybe one chapter a week. And
Yeah.
Wayne Dyer, he loved the Tao Te Ching. It was pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
because one of my books right behind me here, I think is the Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life book. And it does, it walks through each chapter talks about it. And oh my gosh, that truly is in my top 3 books of having a life altering effect on my life, because it just
Wow.
changed the way I was seeing the world, and
Yeah.
and how, yeah, just my filter. And
Yeah.
it was beautiful. So yeah, again, I love it that your work incorporates that as well. So
Well, it
um,
helps examine, Alan Watts is a big fan of Buddhism, or was, when he was alive, big fan of Buddhism as well as Taoism. And he really talks about, the way that, the Tao Te Ching is written is really similar to a Buddhist koan. And I don't know if you've ever read any Buddhist koans, but if you try to make logical sense, you'll be scratching your head all day, like, what, what did I just read? And it's meant to be received in much the same way that a joke is received. When somebody tells a brilliant joke, you just get it, right? It just happens. The spark is there and you laugh. And if somebody has to explain the joke, it kind of loses something. It loses what's special about it. And with the Tao Te Ching, you'll find that as you're going through life, right? You're reading it, you're consuming it, however it, maybe you're listening to it on audiobook. And as you go through life, there's going to be parts of it that flash through your head and you just intuit, oh, that's what that meant. That's what that is. And that's what I find so brilliant, is that it just pops up. And then I'm able to actually then come from a place of experience, right? Because the difference between, and where a lot of people get tripped up, is there's a difference between advice and opinion, right? Advice is coming from somebody who has, it is where you want to be, right? Has a meaningful way to tell you, to guide you to get to that place. Whereas opinion is everything else.
yeah. Wow, that's powerful and deep. I could think on that for quite a while. Yeah. Awesome. So is there anything else that you wanted to touch upon that we haven't had an opportunity to talk about yet?
Um, Most people, I find, when they have pain symptoms, whether it be depression, PTSD, or chronic pain, arthritis, right? The idea that the body can't regenerate cartilage is so absurd. But the problem is, right, and Bruce Lee, as I understand, was famous for these are going to be my words, not his, but say an approximation of, be careful how you speak to yourself, because your body can't help but to listen. And if trauma is caused by causing a corruption to the programming, from a young age, well, we can easily corrupt the programming at an older age too. And if the only thing that we listen to is medical science that treats us as, oh, the only thing missing from you is a pill, and then they say, well, we don't have a pill that can regenerate cartilage, so I'm sorry, but there's nothing more that we can do. Well, that's devastating to people, and they believe that. And if you believe that, well, then you're having the nocebo effect, right? The reverse placebo effect, where you're actually then negatively influencing your body based upon your beliefs. And there's this idea that what's his name, Tony Robbins has, that the most powerful part of the human psyche is the need to be consistent with one's identity. And if we identify as, say, a Christian that identifies, oh, I'm just a wretch, right? I sing, Amazing Grace, for God so saved a wretch like me. I'm nothing but a wretch. I'm just a sinner. Well, what sort of programming are you installing, right? When you use those words, when you have those beliefs. And if you say, well, Jesus can heal, but I'm a wretch. Well, are you worthy of healing if you're a wretch? And so, our governing beliefs really are tied to our identity. And so really what I do is, by getting rid of these parasites, getting rid of these mosquitoes, will I help you connect to that great I am, and really just in a very basic way, help you connect to, who do you want to be? What identity do you want to have? And let's get that to show up.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it so much. And just to put a PS on that and a little exclamation point star by that, on this healing journey that I've been on, I refused. Well, one, the medical community couldn't help me because it was mycotoxin poisoning from mold exposure.
Oh,
And Western medicine just was like, here, take this pill. Here,
yep.
we want to. Your blood pressure's out of whack. Your vitamin C's out of whack. Your vitamin D's out of whack. Your electrolytes are crazy. We'll just pill, pill, pill. And not that I'm anti-pharmaceutical, and I'm not going to go down that road. But for me personally, I am. And I was like, no, no, we need to find the root cause. Like,
Yeah.
what is going on with my body? Why am I so sick? And eventually found my way to a nutritionist who said, Teri, I think you might have some mycotoxin poisoning going on. And so we went into, then we went a very holistic. So, but I started to look at the way I was healing. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sick, I feel like I'm dying, I started to say, oh, body, you know what you need, you know
Yep.
what you're doing. And I started to listen, and I started to truly stop during my meditations and ask my body, what do you need? What do
Mm,
you need? And I was just so impressed with the fact that my body, that I was able to hear and listen
yep.
and be able to give it the things that it needed. And now I'm at 95% healed
Mm,
from everything that had gone wrong.
sounds like you quieted the noise so you could actually increase the signal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for helping guide others how to do that. I think I was able to figure it out just because I've been doing this 5 years and figuring it, talking to such beautiful healing souls and healers that, yeah, I was able to, or God whispers, angel whispers, whatever it was, something led me in the right direction. So how do folks connect with you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, if you're in a similar situation, right, you're listening to this, you're like, hey, there's something about what this guy's saying that really resonates with me. And pills, haven't worked for me, right? Because if one person can take a pill and it might solve that problem, but then cause a bunch of other problems. But medical science says, hey, that's a success. We don't care about those other problems. We have another pill for that. So we just give you another pill. It might cause other problems. We're like, okay, well, great, we have another pill for that. And if you don't necessarily want to go down that path and risk poisoning your body, right, with a lot of just unnecessary things, and it seems to be that every year we hear of a new class action lawsuit of a pill that's causing devastating effects. And if you want to find a way to deal with the root cause, to step out of that pain, to remake your identity, to show up so you're no longer feeling resistance trying to do good for yourself, well, you can reach out to me at freemefrompains.com. And I even have, towards the bottom, I've got a button there where you can download a free meditation. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't really know how to meditate. Well, great, because part of that free meditation is me taking you through how to quiet your mind and then taking you through a brief meditation. So that way I can train people to actually understand how to, again, quiet the noise to increase the signal in their own lives. So that way it can be my gift to you. But you can get that as well as book a healing plan. The healing plan, what we can do is we can chat. It's no pressure, it's free, and what we can do is just chat and help you get some clarity, because again, most people know exactly what they don't want but have very little idea of what they do want.
So true. Yes, and been there, done that. So,
Yeah.
well, gosh, this has just been so enlightening. I know I've certainly learned a lot. So thanks for joining me today on the show.
Oh, hey, I really appreciate again you holding the space for this. This has been a lot of fun, and your last name is quite fitting for the work that you do.
Oh, thanks. Awesome. All right. And Sammy didn't make any noise, so no UPS truck pulled up. All right.
All right.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock again. Just wanted to thank you for listening to the episode today and remind you to visit my website as well, teriwellbrock.com. You can sign up for my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, which is also jam-packed with information and strategies and blog pieces and guest blog pieces and links to shows. Thanks for, again, being here and being a part of this healing space. I very much appreciate you. All right. Bye-bye.